Recording in progress.
All right, so for the bell work, let's start with the one that I had to do this morning. So we have 3 times the absolute value of n minus 4 equals 12. First step of those steps that I told you to write down yesterday is what?
Solve it separately.
No. Isolate the absolute value bars, kind of like you would a variable. So what's being done to the absolute value bars?
Trying to multiply by 3, so we divide by 3.
Good. All right. So instead of multiplying, you divide, and then whatever you do on one side, you have to do to the other. All right. On the left side, we have the absolute value of n minus 4 equal to what? 4. Good, because 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now from here, what do we do? Split it into 2 separate problems first, and then solve it separately. What does the first problem look like? So n minus 4 equals 4. The first one, we're just dropping the bars, right? And then n minus 4 equals negative 4. All right, so the other one, we drop the bars and make the answer negative. What would I do? So this is kind of like a side question. What would I do if at this point, when I isolated the bars, I had a negative? All right, good. So yesterday we learned that if we have the bars isolated and it equals a negative, then it's no solution. All right, so I'm just gonna write that off to the side. I can't remember if we really talked about it. What if, and I don't think we talked about this, I get to this step and it's equal to 0. Then how many solutions do I have? Not infinitely many. You'll never have infinitely many with these absolute value equations. All right, so when I get to this step where I have the bars isolated and it's equal to 0, normally like from here we split it into 2 separate problems and make it equal to the positive and negative answer of this. But is 0 like negative? No, right? So what I end up doing, if this were the case, is just dropping the bars, and I only have one solution. All right, you still solve it like you do a normal equation, add 4 to each side, you get n equals 4. If this were my problem, I'm just kind of editing it. In that case, we would have just one solution. All right, because 0 can't be negative. It's definitely not no solution, it would be one solution. Make sense? All right, so that's not really related to this. This is the real problem. But over here, keep solving. How do I get that n by itself? So we add 4 to each side. On the problem on the left, we get n equal to what? Good. Sorry, that's an 8. And then for the problem on the right, what do we get n equal to?
0.
N equals 0. All right, so most of the time you have 2 solutions. Because most of the time when you get to this step over here, it's equal to a positive number. So we have 2 solutions. All right, it's those situations that I wrote on the right where it might be no solution or one solution. Questions there? All right, so yesterday we did the first problem from our try it here. That's in your workbook on page 24 if you want to follow along. So we still need to review B and C. All right, B is similar to the one we just did. What do I do first for this one? Are the bars isolated? All right, they're not isolated right now, so we need to isolate them. What's opposite of multiplying by 2? So do that on each side. On the left, we have the absolute value of x plus 5 equal to 4 divided by 2, which is what? 2. All right, from here, what do we do? Split it into 2 separate problems first and then solve. So what should my first problem look like? X plus 5 equals 2, so it looks just like the problem, just without the bars. And then what does the second one look like? Good. All right, and then solve them separately. What do I have to do to both sides to get the x by itself? Subtract 5 on each side. So on the left, what's my x value? 2 minus 5 is good, so that's one of my answers. Over here, subtract 5 again from each side. And then we get x equal to what's negative 2 minus 5? Negative 7. All right. You do also have to be good with number lines. All right. You are going to be asked that, say, like on a test or on an exit ticket. So, plot your number line. You need to have both your answers on there. So we can start at negative 8 and keep going till we get to negative 3. Oops, I messed up. Negative 7, negative 6, negative 5. Negative 4, and then we can squeeze negative 3 over here. Sorry. All right, but then for these, should I have open circles or closed circles? Closed, right? This isn't an inequality yet. It's not less than or greater than. It has equal to in there. X is equal to negative 3. So we should have a closed circle on the negative 3. Over here, again, closed circle on the negative 7. Do I need to draw arrows anywhere for equations? Do I have like a range of answers, or do I just have where the 2 dots are? Just where the 2 dots are. So I'm done there. All right, questions? All right, and then that part C right here, are the bars isolated in C? Yes, so you really should have just split it into the 2 separate problems and solved. All right, so 3x minus 6 equals 12, 3x minus 6 equals negative 12, and kept solving. All right, what did you get for your x value for the one on the left? All right, x equals 6 sounds correct. Anyone disagree?
That's what I got.
Okay, good. And then the one on the right, what did you get for that x value? Is it? Well, let's add 6 to both sides. On the left, the 6 is canceled. That's what I thought. All right, and then we have 3x equal to negative 6, right? Because negative 12 plus 6 is negative 6. Divide 3 on each side, and we get x equal to negative 2. All right. I didn't go super in depth in that one because it's kind of like the ones we just did. All right, any questions? Right, and then just practice your number lines for these equations. It should really just be 2 closed dots, no arrows. All right, so then let's look at the slides really quick. The objective is the same as yesterday, but today we're going to be focusing more on the inequalities. All right, so now we're going to look at number lines that have arrows on them. But really the process is the same. The only difference with inequalities versus equations, other than having like a range of answers, is that you do have to flip the sign when you multiply or divide by negative. That's really it. All right, and then today we will finish topic 1. I'm recording right now. I'll post it later. Here's yesterday's lesson. Again, if you're absent, just check the days that you're absent for what we did and those video lessons. The assignment, I might have to make you guys do that at home. Sorry, I might not be able to give you class time because we're going to do a little activity at the end that I think will help you understand this lesson more. So hopefully you're able to do some each night. Today you'll learn how to do the inequalities. And then once you're finished, take a picture and upload it to Schoology. So yeah, we're gonna have a little exit ticket, but instead of it being like the ones we've done before, it's going to be a quiz is. Are you familiar with those? All right, it's kind of like a Kahoot, but it's like self-paced, right? So instead of me putting it up on the board for everyone and everyone answers at the same time, it's like you guys are on your own Chromebooks going at it.
That's a room, but you have to.
Yes, and they are timed, so you're still like expected to, go through it, but it's like a 2-minute time limit per question. It is 4th grade. All right, so it is 3rd grade. It's going to the assessment category, but I'm basically grading you on you filling out the template that I provide you, so showing work, and I'll look at your scores in the quizzes. But will I hurt you? That will only hurt you if you're just guessing through it. So I'm gonna walk around, make sure no one's just clicking random things or answering too fast. That you're filling out the template, showing work, and that will go in the assessment category. All right, make sense? So that's supposed to be a good grade, but I always have those kids that like to just randomly click through, so those kids will lose points. All right, and then so that's going to be at the end of class today. Probably going to set aside 15 minutes for that. And then that's the end of topic 1. So we have tomorrow that we're taking Form A, and I explained it yesterday, so I'm not going to explain it again too much today. We're taking Form A tomorrow, open note. Thursday, you're reviewing that test. Working on corrections. I'm not grading those corrections. It's just so that when you take Form B on Friday, Form B is kind of like your retake. All right, and that retake has no notes. So whichever is higher will go in the grade book. Yes. Yes, there is always a big improvement from Form A to Form B. All right, so you have to take it. That's kind of like your retake. So do your best on both. All right, questions? All right, so what else? All right, look at this paper, the one you picked up today. All right, this one. All right, so to fill in these blanks, to solve absolute value equations, you isolate the absolute value just like you would a variable. So that's the same thing I said when we did the equations yesterday. All right, now let me find the notes for this part. I kind of forgot. All right, so if we have the absolute value of something greater than A, so this couple variables, X can be any number, A can be any number. But if we have the absolute value of something that is greater than a number, whatever answer is here, and A is positive, then we have 2 choices for what our answer can be. All right, so when we split this up, it's going to be X less than negative a or x greater than a. So the splitting up into two separate equations, well, when we're splitting up into two separate inequalities, that's how we split it. All right, notice the sign change, make sure these signs match up how I wrote them here. And all of that. All right, but then if we have the absolute value of something is less than a, then we have an and statement. And it looks like this. It's going to be negative a less than x less than a. All right, and I think this will make more sense as we do the problems. All right, so just make sure we have those blanks filled out. All right, so down here, a few examples, solve the inequality, graph the solution on a number line. So first step is always to do what with these absolute value problems? Isolate those absolute value bars. What's being done to them? Instead of adding 15, we're going to, so do that on each side. On the left side, the 15s cancel. We just have the absolute value of 4 minus x. This time asked me earlier, so get that in. All right, so you got to sharpen it. Absolute value of 4 minus x greater than what's 21 minus 15? Okay. Now from here, we split this into two separate problems, but use this up here as your guide. So is this the absolute value greater than or less than? Greater than, so set it up like this, where it's an or statement. All right, we're going to have it where we drop the bars. 4 minus x less than negative 6, because we're using this as our guide up here. So drop the bars, less than negative 6. Or 4 minus x greater than 6. Sharpen it. All right, and then solve them separately. But anyone confused how we came up with what's in the green? All right then, so again, we're just using this as our guide. And solve them separately. How do I get rid of the 4? Subtract 4 on each side. All right, then we have negative x. Do I need to flip the sign? When I subtract, do I need to flip the sign? No, so leave the sign the same. What's negative 6 minus 4? Negative 10. All right, are we finished? Is the x by itself? What's next to it that needs to go away? And how do I get rid of that negative? By, okay, I heard divided by 1. Does that change anything? So what am I dividing it by? So do that on each side. All right, the negatives cancel on the left. Do I need to flip the sign? Yes, because I divided by negative on each side. So now it's going to be x greater than, what's negative 10 divided by negative 1? Positive 10. And that's part of our answer. Bring down the or and solve this other one. Should be the same steps that you did over here. All right, so subtract 4 from each side. On the left, we have negative x. On the right, what's 6 minus 4? 2. Again, we need to divide negative 1 on each side to cancel out that negative sign. We have x greater or less than? Less than, what's 2 divided by negative 1? Negative 2. All right, so here's my answer. You still have to graph it, but if this was like a multiple choice problem, then I would look for the one that looks like this. Questions about that? All right, now the graphing is just like before, like when we did the compound inequalities, right? So my graph needs to have both of these numbers on there. So maybe I'll start at like -3 and keep going until I have up to 10 or around 10. I'm just labeling every other one so I can keep it neat. All right, now make your number line should have both those numbers on there and numbers around it. Now am I gonna have an open or a closed circle on the 10? All right, look at the sign. Should be an open circle. I should hear more than one person saying that. All right, it's an open circle. What about on the -2? Is that going to be open or closed? It should be open. All right, the only time it's closed is if it has that equal to part in there, and it doesn't. Now, since it's an or statement, what direction should the arrows be going in? Opposite directions. All right, but I'm just gonna kind of verify. I'm just gonna kind of double check my lines. Is where I drew the line for this side on the 10, are these numbers bigger than 10 over here? All right, so then I drew it the right way. What about over here for the -2? Are these numbers over here smaller than -2? So then I did draw it the right way. Questions about that? All right, I'm gonna show you. Actually, I'm gonna have you try on the your turns. All right, so down here where it says your turn, this time I'm not having you go in your workbook. You are going to try number 9. All right, so number 9 is going to be your turn. Try it out. So the first step is to isolate those absolute value bars. So that means instead of multiplying by 3, like it's showing in that original problem, we're dividing by 3. Everyone good so far? Everyone got that first step? All right, good. Remember, it's not distribution. Those aren't parentheses. All right, right now it's being multiplied, but it's don't distribute. It's not the same thing. All right, now you're here. You need to split it into 2 separate problems. You need to use the guide that's at the top that we filled in together. right? All of this over here. So you should have seen that because the absolute value is greater than that number, that it's going to be an or statement. All right, so split it up in the same way. It has you flip the sign and make it negative for this part. And for the other one, you're really just dropping the bars. All right, and solving them separately. So get the x by itself. Instead of subtracting 7, you should have added 7. What's negative 3 plus 7? 4, positive. And then 3 plus 7 is 10. All right, and then it's an or statement, so just bring down that or. Why is it closed circles this time? It has that equal to part in there. Anytime you have the equal in there, it should be closed circles. Just like with the equations, it has equals, so it's closed. All right, and they're or statements, so they should be going in the opposite direction. Good there? All right, now let's do an example with the and statement. All right, so going back up to the top, I'll demonstrate. So I have in part B, I might have to erase this part over here because it's a little messy. All right, but looking at B on the top of your note sheet, are the bars isolated? All right, no, there's stuff on the outside of it that needs to go away. So how do I get rid of that -10? We're going to add it to both sides. Do I need to flip the sign when I add something to both sides? No. All right, just checking to make sure that we know. All right, so now we have the absolute value less than or equal to what's -2 plus 10. And it's a positive 8. Everyone good there so far? Now look at your little guide that's at the top. Oh, and I accidentally erased it when I erased everything else. But we said that if we have the absolute value of something less than A, then we have an and statement. All right, and it looks something like this is what we had originally. All right, so when we're setting this up and we need to split it into the 2 separate problems, it's going to look like this. One will be where we just drop the bars. All right, so keep the sign the same. You can put and because it is an and statement. And then we have x plus 4. Now we're going to flip the sign greater than or equal to -8. All right. So we have where this part is facing the bigger number compared to the negative, and this part facing the bigger number compared to the positive. Questions there? All right, so the ands basically drop the bars, flip the sign for the negative, and you're good. All right, so over here, we need to get the x by itself. What do I do? Subtract 4 on each side. Then we have x less than or equal to what's 8 minus 4? 4. All right, bring down that and. Over here, we have to do the same thing. We have to subtract 4 on each side. And we get x Greater than or equal to what's -8 minus 4? -12. All right. So this is our answer. We can box this up. Now we just have to graph it. But any questions on that process? All right, I think for the setting up, like when you split them into 2 separate problems is the hard part. But really all you have to do is drop the bars for one of them. However it looks, just drop the bars. For the other one, you're flipping the sign and making it negative. All right, so if you want to just remember it that way, go ahead. All right, now let's graph it. This time it has to go all the way from -12 to 4. So maybe I'll start at like -14. And I'm gonna have to like count by 2s. So like -12 there, -10, -8, -6, -4, -2, 0, 2, 4, and 6. All right, so I labeled every other one, counting by 2s. You can double check it if you want. So it should look something like this, all the way from around -12 to around 4. Now, am I going to have an open or closed circle on the 4? Closed. So 4 would be over here, should be closed because of that equal to part. And then am I going to have an open or closed circle on the -12? Closed again, which would be over here. Now, since it's an and statement, where should the arrows go? Should they go in opposite directions, in the middle? All right, it should meet in the middle, right? But we'll always double check it. Remember, it's like it's holding hands, the ands, right? They should overlap in the middle. And then again, just double check with your arrows. So between the X and the 4, which is the bigger number? The 4. So on the line, are the numbers smaller than 4 or bigger than 4?
Smaller.
Which matches this statement, right? 4 is bigger than the line. Over here, are the numbers where the line is drawn? Are they bigger than -12? Yes, like 0 is bigger, 2 is bigger than -12, so we did put it in the right direction. Questions about that? All right, so I'm gonna have you do the U try number 10. Go ahead and do that one. It's on your note sheet, not in the book. And you can use this one as a model. So over here, they just drop the bars. Over here, they drop the bars, flip the sign, and made that negative. Right, because don't negatives change the sign when you're like doing your inequalities? So that's what we did for this part. Questions there about the setup? Yes.
Do you repeat the sentence about that?
So when you're making your 2 inequalities, one of them, you're just dropping the bars, right? Keep the sign the same, you keep that positive. So that's over here. The other one, the absolute value part should still be the same. No bars this time. But now you're flipping the sign and making that negative. All right, I think the setup up here, like that T that I had you guys write, helps with the ands and the ors of it. But you can also just graph graph it like you do normally and just see what it looks like to determine if it's and or it's or. All right, just trying to give you tips for like on a test, right? You don't want to have to memorize a whole bunch of stuff or use your notes on every single problem. You want to just remember the least amount of things as possible. All right, but then you isolate it, you solve it. You should have had x greater than -4 and x less than 1. Questions there? And then when you graph it, it's going to be, open circles, right? X smaller than 1 would be this direction. X greater than -4 would be that direction. Any questions?